Hello, viewers. I'm Princess Senit, conference producer at Technology Networks, and I am excited to welcome our next speaker, a renowned global expert in workplace communication, motivation, and engagement, Antoni Lacinai. With a deep understanding of how communications impacts employee performance, Antoni has helped countless organizations improve their workplace dynamics and achieve higher levels of productivity and satisfaction. His engaging presentations and practical insights equip leaders with the tools to foster a more motivated and connected workforce. Today, Antoni will share his insights on how to supercharge your team through effective communication. And after his presentation, we will also have a Q&A session, and we welcome any questions that you may have. Please submit them via the Q&A chat system on the right. And if you do see a comment or question that resounds with you, do give it a thumbs up, and I'll be looking at those most liked questions and comments and bringing those in during the Q&A at the end. Now, without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Antoni Lacinai. So, Antoni, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for pronouncing my name correctly as well. I have been called everything from lasagna to last night. So there you go. One of them is my password, by the way. So now you know that as well. Yes, you do your thing. You do it really well in the labs and so on. And that's not my area of expertise, although I happen to help a lot of companies in your industry with workplace communication, motivation, and engagement. I actually have the luxury of saying no to many companies if I don't want to work with them. So when the tobacco company calls, I say no. If the Russian bank calls, I say no, and so on. But you, I say yes every time. You also spend, your most valuable assets with me right now, your time and attention. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Today we're going to talk about, well, you heard it before. I'm going to show you my own version of that one. This one, you get customers and colleagues and team. We said team as well. I think it's in the invitation as well. So let's put up team here as well. That you deserve, and serve in bold letters as well. I do believe in servant mentalities. I've seen so many examples that if we have that mindset, productivity goes up, customer satisfaction goes up, everything goes up. I will actually give you a couple of numbers on that one later on. How to supercharge your team, and so on. So let's talk about soft skills for hard results. But let's do it first with a brain hack. How can we hack our brains in order to do this? Well, here is the question for you. Who made you feel happy the last week? And I, by the way, suggest that you start most meetings every week with this question. Take a moment now, put it into the Q&A or the chat, and just name who made you happy the last week? Who made you smile? Who made you feel warm at heart? Who made you laugh, perhaps? Who was it? Do you have a name or two that you want to share with the rest of us? I know that there is about a 15 to 20 second delay, so I'm not expecting you to just get that up immediately, but it will come up there. And if you don't, please at least think about it. Who made you feel happy? Who made you warm at heart? While you do this exercise, let me talk about why this is important, because this is a brain hack that we can use in our daily lives at work. You could say that we have an inner traffic light in the brain, a traffic light that could be green, yellow, or red. And what happens if it is, let me show you a picture of that one as well, it will actually alter the whole culture of the company, the communication culture, the leadership culture, the organizational culture. It depends on what traffic lights we have and how many of them are red, how many are yellow, and how many are green. Let's go through them one by one. The yellow, let's start with the red one here, this one. This is the toxic environment. This is where you're threatened. This is where your inner bodyguard takes over. Every movie you have seen, the president is in danger. Well, then the bodyguard takes over. That's it. You don't get access to higher functions of the brain. Everything is about going away from a lethal situation. And what kind of culture will you have? What kind of communication and motivation will you have in that case? Well, it's all about going away from, as I said. So let's write this up here. And when that happens, you basically just want to attack or escape. So that's the red light mentality. It could be really toxic if you're not, caring for it well enough, because you can have it a little bit, but let's see what more we can do. From oriented, and this is a hidden driver for employee engagement. If everyone says, whose fault is it? And then some people say, not my fault, I didn't mean it, by the way, then it's a from orientation situation. The yellow light in the brain is much better, I believe, because then you want to go to something. So the whole conversation is more forward oriented. Where do we want to go? What can we do? Where can we find berries to eat or bears to kill, if that's what it is, back in the savannah times? It's good. It creates a dopamine kick when we do it right, but it also creates a lot of frustration when we don't know where to go. So we should be prepared that this is what I call management by reorganization, management by fumbling around sometimes, or stumbling even. It's both fumble and stumble. While the red light mentality is more like management by terror, perhaps, or management by blame games and so on. Both of them are needed from an evolutionary perspective, but it doesn't help us that much in a situation at work that we are today, because we don't have any lions who try to kill us, for instance. The green light mentality is, of course, better. This is where you are more at ease. This is where you have psychological safety. I know if you listen to Krabrina before, she talks about safety as well, a bit at least. This is where you feel better. You get along better. You get access to the full brain, which means that you can be creative and constructive and productive and so on. So if you want to go to any one of them, go to the green one. There is a problem, however, if the brain is completely green. And that is that you might end up in a situation where all you want to do is to protect what you have. And that means that you have management by don't rock the boat. There are no courageous, energetic moves. It's just like, let's keep it where we are. It's good enough. Let's not change anything. Apart from that, having a green light mentality, a green light mindset, and a green light culture is the way to go. Much better, obviously. But let me give you a couple of examples of how it is when you have a hero on the green light side and you have a villain on the other side. Let's see if I can bring this one up. Here we go. Two good examples we have right here. The green light on the right-hand side, I'm going to put make her into an angel. She's not dead. I talked to her just a few weeks ago. She was my former boss back in the days when I was working at a large company. I was in the telecom industry at the time, 110,000 employees or something like that. And this woman, Martina, was my boss. She was just amazing. I always felt appreciated, listened to, respected. She didn't agree with everything I said, but she was just amazing, just getting that feel. And we were sitting in this boring corridor from the 70s. I think you know what I mean when I say the 70s, the boring corridors where we have the offices, closed doors and all that type of environment. And then you have coffee machines all over the place. Now, Martina, in her corner, in the third floor, that's where people went for the coffee. We did not have better coffee. I was working for at the time. We were like 10 people in our group. But we had Martina, and she created this great energy in the team, and everybody wanted to feel that energy. So we went to her all the time, to that corner. Everyone else did as well. I mean, I was working there. And then, by the way, a reorg happened. You know about reorgs, I guess. After a while, I went up a couple of floors. Some of my colleagues went to Brazil or some other places. I stayed at the same building. And after a few months, I went down again just to get the ambience of the place. And it was just dead, empty, boring, not very fun. So Martina did something very special. She created this communication culture of trust and energy and goal and so on. So we all like to be with her. Now, on the other side, and let's put some devil's horn on that guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but it's in the newspaper, so it's public knowledge. He was the CEO for another telecom company, happened to be, by chance, a big company in France, 150,000 employees, I think. And this was in 2008, and he decided to get rid of 23,000 people to get his numbers up. Now, this was in France. It's not like in other countries where you might just fire people on 2 weeks' notice. You don't do it in France. Actually, you don't do it in many countries. But he needed to think long and hard on what to do, and he did. He went there back and forth, and then he realized he got an epiphany. He gathered his executive team and he said to them, here's what I'm going to do, and you're going to help me. We are going to bully them out of the company. We're going to make them quit by themselves. Let's put them in remote locations they don't want to work at. Let's give them useless tasks. Let's just make them feel worthless. And then they will quit by themselves, because mark my word, he said, they are leaving either through the door or through the window. In 2019, this man was convicted, only 4 months to jail, for creating such a toxic environment that 19 people chose the window. That is what a red light mentality and a red light leader can do, creating a toxic terror environment where people are just afraid to do their job. We cannot have it like that. That's why I believe that we should have more of Martinas in the world. She rocks, he doesn't. Green light mentality, much better. Because if you look at psychology, for instance, you might look at self-determination theory, where they show that this is what we want. We want the ABC. Every one of your colleagues and team members want this. They want autonomy so that they can make decisions without having you breathing over the neck all the time, for instance. They want a sense of belonging, to feel the tribe vibe, that they're part of something bigger and more important than only themselves. And they want to grow and show their competence. This is what they want. And I have noticed, because I traveled the world doing this, I have noticed that many of the best teams, they actually have this fixed. It doesn't mean, autonomy doesn't mean that you have an abdicating leadership. You should still be very engaging and delegating perhaps, but not abdicating. But giving them the mandate to actually do things their way, if it's possible, is a good thing. People like that. But I also noticed many times when you're in a stressful environment, deadlines is looming over you and so on, that many people actually feel this instead. They are very distressed, not euphoric stress where, like in bursts when you just perform really well, but distress, longer term. And stress, by the way, is the worst factor of them all if you look at mental and physical health, by the way. So you don't want to have too much of that. But this is what I see many times, and people get exhausted and actually fed up. And I also hear some managers saying, I don't understand. Why aren't they as passionate as I am? Why aren't they as motivated as I am? Because they might not be the manager, for instance. Or the owner says the same thing in some companies. I don't get it. Why aren't they doing what I do? I put in 20 hours a day. Because they are not the owner. So they're not the problem. Let me look at this from a perspective of the Gallup studies on employee engagement. I think Gallup had the biggest study around the world. Every 3 years or something like that, they come up with a new studies. Thousands and thousands of employees around the world. They check them, they do a survey with them, and they got the numbers of who is really engaged, who is somewhat engaged, and who is not engaged. And it looks something like this. Let me see if I can show you that one. We're moving back to this one. So this is the Gallup study of employee engagement. So on the right-hand side, you have what Gallup calls the actively engaged people. They roll up their sleeves. Let's see if I can show you that. They roll up their sleeves. They say, let's do it. Come on. And then the ones in the middle, actually, Gallup calls them disengaged. They say everyone is disengaged unless they are actively engaged. And I believe that that is wrong. That is not using the words right. There should be some people actually being engaged as well. But actively engaged on the right-hand side. And here you have the actively disengaged people, the saboteurs, the one who trash talk you behind your back or question everything and just create this boring, toxic, painful environment where nobody wants to be with them. Or they gather a group of other people who have dissatisfied as them and then just ruin it for everyone else. I believe that they are the ones who go up to a whiteboard, take a pen, it doesn't work, and they put the bloody pen back so that someone else will suffer. We don't want that. How many of them do you think are actively engaged? You don't have to put it in the chat. I'm just asking you to think about that right now. How many do you think are actively engaged? Well, the number is 23%. That's it, 23%. Out of 100 people, the first 23 do a high five. Then comes the middle ones, these ones. They're like, oh, okay, this is good. This is okay. I enjoy it. I do have a life outside, but it's good. Don't worry about them. These ones, 15% of the workforce globally are what they call actively disengaged, meaning that they are saboteurs, meaning that they ruin it for everyone else, take the productivity down to really bad levels, and make life just bad for everyone. The interesting thing here is also, by the way, if you are physically in the office, I mean, it's a lot of hybrid going on as well, flexible workplaces and so, but if you're physically in the office and you sit close to high performers, if these people sit close to high performers, they will also perform better, about 15% better, 15 to 30% actually better, just by being physically close to high performers. And if they sit close to these people, they will be about 30% less productive. That's how toxic they are. That's how bad it is for the organization to have them. We should, however, look ourselves in the mirror and say, why are they so bad? Did we do a recruitment? Do we suck at recruitment? Is that the problem? Or did we promise something that we didn't deliver on? Or is it something completely different? Because if it is your fault, so to say, your responsibility, then fix it and try to get them to a better place. I have a friend, actually I have many ones, who compare people with popcorn. And I think that is such a beautiful metaphor that I want to share it with you as well. So in my hand right now, I have microwave popcorn. And as you can see, it says premium quality on the bag, premium quality. We don't hire assholes on purpose. We don't say, you know what? The lab department, they are just too happy. Let's hire Boris. He is a bad guy. Let's hire him and make life miserable for all of them. That would make us look much better. We don't do that. And by the way, Boris was just a made-up name. I have no idea if that's one. The cool thing about this is that if you want the corn to pop, let's say that the corns are the people. If you want the corn to pop, you need two things. You need time and energy, time and attention. That's what you need. In my microwave oven, it takes about 2 minutes to get a nice bag of popcorn. But it doesn't take 2 minutes and then the whole bag just explodes. No, it takes like 30 seconds. And after 30 seconds, the first corn start to pop. These guys, they actively engaged. They, again, roll up their sleeves. They say, come on, this is fun. Let's do it. See the bigger picture. See the goal. Let's go there. And then the rest of the bag follows. So the ones in the middle say, okay, fine. And then after a while, you have the whole bag just ba, 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 ba. And then you have some people over here saying, fine, okay, poof. And then they pop too. 2 minutes later, ping, get the bag out in the bowl. Nice bowl. I love popcorn. I know if you do this well. What do you have there? You have the smell, you have the taste, everything's good. But what do you find at the bottom of the bowl? I'm not gonna pop. Why should I pop? Let someone else pop instead. It's not in my job description to pop. Ask someone else, and so on and so on and so on. So we have the whole bag and we just have to handle these people. Find a better place for them. Make them find out why they are angry or upset or whatever. See what you can do with it. If nothing else works, they can't be there anymore. They just ruin it for everyone else. So you have to have that in mind. Perhaps it's a bit harsh, but the reason it's harsh is because of the consequences. Let me show you a couple of consequences that I found when I looked into what happens if you have a rude, incivil, toxic environment. What happens with people? There's so many things I mentioned here. Actually, it's more than this. But let's just look at a couple of them. Look at this one. 25% of people take out their frustrations on their customers. You have a 38% decline in creative solutions. Not very good, is it? 70% less working memory. How can you do your job well if you feel like that? And it goes on and it goes on. Less productivity, less effort, and so on. The red light mentality and the way we sabotage doesn't help us. But the good thing is that if we go the other way, if we do this really well, here are some of the numbers I found for that one instead. Look at that. 60% higher evaluation of a company, 30% higher customer satisfaction, 30% higher productivity, 68% higher well-being. I mean, look at those numbers. And then, of course, some sort of higher profit as well. you have nothing to lose by creating a nice environment, by being kind to people. And I'm guessing you already know that, but these are the numbers proving that this makes sense. So let's see what we can do when it comes to that, and see if we can work to be really, really good and kind to each other. And there are things we can do, and let me show you what those are. But first, let me just show you one more thing here before we go into the next phase, which is the communication part. So the first part is about engagement. The second part will be about communication. I work with a company. I'm not working for them, but I have a partnership with them called An Even Better Place to Work. And they actually have a number of diagnostics where you can do. One of them is called Mood at Work. It's a simple one, 7 areas, connect their well-being, satisfaction, and so on. 4 questions each, and that's 28 questions. And you get a snapshot of how engaged people are right now in your workplace. This particular one is something that I can offer for you without charge. They have told me that it's okay. So I'm just going to mention it. If you're interested in it, then contact me and we can talk about it, so you get an idea of what your team is like right now, and if you want to do something that strengthens even more. Okay, so what can you do if you really want them to be engaged and so on? There are a couple of areas that I focus on, and I mean, there's other things as well. It could be different IT systems that can help you, pulse measurements and so on. But I want to show you this one. Make sure that your leadership is rock solid and good and kind and trusting. If you do that, you will increase your employee engagement. People will be happier, and actually the customer will be happier too. The way to do it is to focus on making sure that you are really good communicators. You can't do it without it. This one, I see it as a masterclass in itself. How do you make sure that you lead engaging and effective meetings? We know how meetings are, pretty boring, many of them. And then this one is about setting the right kind of meaningful goals, working with motivational boosters, and self-leadership. Again, this is what I focus on, and I've noticed that if you do this right, the company or the department will thrive. Now, let me focus a bit on communication excellence for the remaining time that I have before it's time for a Q&A. And by the way, again, write any questions you have in the chat and so on if you want to. First one that I want to mention is like an overall picture that I just want you to understand. You cannot not communicate. There's some people who says, I've heard like presidents or managing directors say, no, let's not communicate. You know what? You communicate volumes if that happens. Let's say that you go into a store and two sellers are talking to each other, not recognizing your existence. Are they communicating with you? They are. They are telling you that you are not important, that I don't care about you. And that's dangerous in that situation. So just understand that everything about you communicates. What you say, what you do, how you listen, what you eat, what you wear, what you drive, everything communicates. If you're the leader, you communicate on a higher volume, because everything about you will be amplified in that case. Now, when I started to look into communication, which I actually did 30 years ago, I'm that old now, I noticed that, and I focus on workplace communication more than anything else, even though many things spill over. I decided to put everything that I learned into a very condensed book. I've written and co-written 14 books by now. It's this one, Employee Engagement. 20 keys to an outstanding workplace communication. I'm not showing you this to sell it. Actually, I will give it to you at the end in a QR code. I just want to mention that it's there. It's 21 of them, and then it's also 20 of them, and then it's 3 communication superpowers. And those are the one I want to mention right now, because they are on the highest level, and then we can talk a bit about them. So let me go through them one by one. And if you don't want to take any screenshot, probably this would be the one. Although I have made sure that you have uploaded all this material into the website here, so you can always look at it as well. Even more material than I would use. I have some extras, like for instance, 9-step to world-class feedback. I know that Ali talked about, asked a question in the previous presentation before me. So that's something you might want to consider. Here they are. Let's take them one by one. Energy is a superpower, a communication superpower, because it's really about, I want to believe that you believe when you communicate with me. Why should I if you don't seem to do it? And energy is mostly visible in your non-verbal communication. To some extent also the words, because if you have strong words, it's better than weak words and so on. But otherwise, it's about your non-verbal communication, the oldest form of communication. It's been around for millions of years, long before we could even say a word. So it's how you look and it's how you sound. All of that is part of energy. I know that many of you have lived through the pandemic. You have had your laptop in your lap or at your desk, and all you have is the little laptop camera, and every time you look into that one in your lap or on your desk, you're looking down at people. This is just a small unconscious things that make people feel annoyed. They feel that you're looking down on them. And I actually say that the difference between looking arrogant and normal is only 1 inch. 2.54 centimeters, if you want to talk centimeters and meters. 1 inch, that's it. So if I look normal, I look like this. If I look arrogant, I lift my nose up just this much. And all of a sudden, I have this ambiance of arrogance going on. It's a small thing, but it makes a big difference. The same when you look at eye contact, for instance. How long should you look at somebody before it doesn't make sense anymore? Well, first of all, you shouldn't look too little. You shouldn't look like this, because then all of a sudden people will feel that you're nervous and not trustworthy. But you shouldn't psycho stare either, should you? Because after a while, they will be very uncomfortable. It works more, you actually look more into the camera, if you're like me, when you have a camera. But if you look at people, like a one-on-one, for instance, you don't psycho stare in their eyes all the time. Instead, you take away the gaze and then you go back. If you look at somebody for too long, they will feel a very dominant and aggressive type of behavior from your side, meaning that you either signal aggression or lust. So basically, if I look at you for too long, without blinking, I either want to kill you or perhaps make babies, and none of them are appropriate in the workplace. So make sure that you handle small, subtle things like that in a good way. Now, if I do presentation skills training, of course, this one will take at least 1/3 of my time, just the energy part here, because it's so important that we get this right. Let's mention empathy. Empathy, so that I feel that you understand me, that you are interested instead of interesting. Big difference. That you listen in order to understand and not to respond. Empathy is really, really hard. Some people are fantastic listeners. You might have them in your network and so on. You can ask them questions. You can talk to them, and they nod, and they ask them questions, good questions, and they listen, and they really try to understand. Most of us are focused on me. And they might say, enough talk about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me? And it's back into you again. Empathy is a superpower for sure. People love to feel listened to. Like Martina, for instance, I love that she listened to me. Even if she didn't agree with everything, I felt seen, heard, respected. It's a gift. It's a real gift. But it's also the most fragile of the 3 superpowers, because as soon as you feel entitled to something more, if you feel that your status is higher than the team you have, you lose empathy. You might even lose the thing that got you into that position. And that's not very good for either of you, because then all of a sudden you go from a green light to perhaps a yellow light, or even a red light if it's the worst kind, over there. So empathy is such a great superpower. Don't forget it. Make sure that you have it as well. Let's go into the last one. This was empathy. That's why I have it as a heart. And then you have clarity. Clarity so that I can understand you. I cannot act on what I don't understand, and I cannot act on what I don't remember. So if you are clear, if you can make me feel smart, and if I can remember what you said, I have a good chance of strengthening a wanted behavior or changing a bad behavior. But I need that clarity. And if you do make me feel smart, I will follow you anywhere. By the way, all of these 3 are also the key and the cornerstones of charisma. So if you do this right, you will also become across as more charismatic, like a side bonus, if you will. And of course, clarity, if you look at that, there's so many techniques you can use. The beginning and the end is really important. The power of three. Let's talk about the power of three. This is one of my favorites. See if I can get that here. Here we go, the power of three. Every story almost, every tale is about this. Three little piglets. The big bad wolf. We have three wishes from Aladdin, or the genie. The three musketeers. They were not three musketeers. They were four musketeers. But for some reason, we are bullying D'Artagnan all the time. Don't tell me why. And look at this from the power of three. Fill in the blanks. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Most of us know it. Veni Vidi Vici. Some people don't even know this is Caesar. It says, I came, I saw, I conquered. Blood, sweat, and tears. Blood, sweat, and tears. So we do have this triad going on all the time. That's how we remember things. So if you don't remember anything else when it comes to clarity, remember this. Put things in triads and people will remember much, much more if you do. Now, we could ask ourselves, which one of these are the most important one? If I have to choose. Well, I've done my research on this. I've looked into this. And for me, it's pretty obvious. And it looks like this. Let me show you. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Here we go. That's the one. Empathy comes in at number one. It does. If you have executives with high perceived empathy, 70 to 80% of the workforce will feel engaged or actively engaged instead of only 22, 23%. Number one, get that right, understand them, make them feel seen, heard, and so on, and they will be in a much better place to be engaged, and then the rest will follow. The other ones are a close second. From a presentation perspective or a communication perspective, there's also a flow to it. You start with empathy, and then you move into clarity, creating a good message, because now you understand who you talk to, and then you deliver it with the right energy. That's the flow. Again, depending on if I talk to leaders and salespeople about conversations, then I spend most of my time actually here. If I talk about presentations, I spend equal time on these ones, mostly. So there you go. Energy, empathy, clarity. Remember those three, because if you do them well, it's really good. And you can't have one without the other, by the way, because then it doesn't work. If you only have energy, you are a clown. If you only have clarity and you lack, for instance, empathy, then you're a psychopath. If you only have empathy but nothing else, then you're a therapist, and it might be okay to be that, but perhaps not in your business, depending on what you work with. So have that balance ready. It will help you a lot. I want to mention one more thing, and that is because there was another session before me talking about feedback and so on. And it was a lot about constructive feedback and so on, and everything was about not blame, but criticizing bad behavior. And of course, if the bad behavior hinders us, if the people are rude, we just need to fix it, for sure. Understood. But psychology has shown that the real impact that you can make on making people feel or be more productive is actually to praise them and not to criticize them. Praise them for what they do good instead. So I want to show you this one just to give you an idea about that one. According to an IBM study, high-performing teams have 6 times more positive recognition than the average team. 6 times more positive recognition than the average team. And low-performing teams have 2 times more negative interactions or recognition than the average team. So be aware that you don't want to talk only about what went wrong, be too problem-oriented. I mean, to some extent, we're wired like that. Again, the bodyguard always looking into what is the problem, is there a potential threat? But in today's modern world, we know that if we focus on praising people for when they did something good and just having a good smile and say good morning in the morning instead of looking into our phone or whatever it is to just create this positive interaction, people will be more perform better, for sure. And if you have that whining mentality, people will perform worse. And if they don't feel trusted, they will show it. They will prove that they shouldn't be trusted. If they feel trusted, they will prove that too, that you trust them. And by the way, there was a number at the very end, and I cannot find the source anymore. It bothers me. I need to find it somewhere. But look at that one: 50% of all the praise you get in your lifetime, you get before you turn 3 years old. I don't know about you, but for me, that is disastrous. We must do something better than that. We deserve to do something better than that. So let's try to focus on creating more positive spin to it, more energetics, more energy, more positive energy, and not so much negativity. It's there anyway in the workplace. We know that for sure. So boost your team. Try to get this right. Boosting self-confidence by praising performance, effort, and behavior. And boost self-worth by praising attitude, kindness, and courage. You will have more people being actively engaged or engaged, and less people being disengaged or actively disengaged if you do this, for sure. It's not easy all the time. I understand that. And in an environment where you have deadlines and it's hectic and you have high quality demands and so on, we shouldn't kid ourselves in saying that everything is just green, green, green all the time. It's not. So actually, the best teams in the world, let's go back to that one and see if we can get that. I'm going to find it again here. Let's see. Here we go. The best teams in the world are not completely green, as I said before. They actually have a touch of red, just a touch. And that means that they are not too happy of where they are. They want to go away from something, but they take away the toxicity. And they have a lot of yellow, so they want to go to something, but they have clarity. And then they have a massive amount of green, so that they feel safe and can take risks and also raise their hands and saying, I don't agree, and so on. They are over here. They are the best ones, far away from that one. The best teams are way, way, way on this side because they have that figured out. It's not easier. It takes more work to be on that side than just being kumbaya green. But if you want to perform really well, that's where you want to go. That's where you want to go. All right. I've been looking into communication and motivation and so on for the better part of 30 years. And I'm planning on writing a new book. I have a good friend, former executive at Google, and we're going to write a book together. And we come to the same conclusion. If we want to summarize everything that we have learned so far, and we're not talking about techniques now or special skills and so on, just like an overall, if there's one word that covers it all, I would say that word is care. Care for your people, care for your vision, care for your mission, care for the planet. If you do, I want to help you. And if you do, you're going to have such a great time with all the positives that I just mentioned before when it comes to customer satisfaction, engagement, creativity, productivity, and profit. All of that is worthwhile your effort, for sure. To end it with this one, and before we go into a Q&A, here's a QR code for you where you can actually download this book if you want to. It's there, but there's also checklists, tools, tips. You can even book a meeting and just talk to me if you want to explore some of these things more. With that, I would like to say thank you. What time is it now? I have time for one more story before we go into that one. I do. Yeah, okay. I have time for one more story. Let me give you a short story. One of my favorite stories when it comes to empathy and so on. I have two sons, Elliot and Milton. They are 24 and 20. When Milton was only 6 years old, I asked him, Milton, can you tell me the difference between being able to hear and being able to listen? Now, you should know that Milton was like a social genius when he was young, very in tune with people and so on. But he looked at me and he said, you're the communication consultant. You should know. And I said, yeah, you're right, Milton, but I would like to know what you think. And he said, okay, fine, pay attention. To be able to hear is simply to not be deaf. But to listen, Daddy, that is when you really try to understand what the other person is saying. And not only saying, but also what the other person is actually meaning with what they say. Do you get it? I looked at my son for like 3 full seconds in silence, and then I said, welcome to the company, my son. There you go, Milton. Now 20 years old, he has actually done his summer work for me. So he's done a lot of research on empathy, altruism, generosity, but also bullying, stress, negativity, and so on, and that I can use in my next book about caring. So again, here is the page. If you want to download anything, books, checklists, whatever, it's there for you. So a big thank you to you for paying your time and attention with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoni. We've received actually quite a lot of questions for you already. So some of which were submitted earlier on, and it's one we hear quite often, actually. So there is a common idea that all too many leaders lack empathy, which you've touched on. Why do you think that is?
Why they?
The idea that all too many leaders lack empathy.
Lack empathy. I said you like empathy. So, okay, now I understand. Well, you know what? At first, I didn't believe that was true. But then I talked to a leadership expert, a friend of mine, who said that it's actually proven that there are about 2% psychopaths in the world and 10% among executives. So there is something going on there. I don't have a clear answer to that one. It might be that they come across as result-oriented. And if you want a result-oriented high-performance culture, you tend to lift them up at the expense of people that they work for. And I believe, again, that you have the team you deserve. So for me, leadership is serving a bigger cause and then inviting people to that journey. And management is serving the people who are there to help us get to that bigger cause. If you understand that, you also understand that the people in the team is never there for you. You are there for them. So there is a thing about empathy. And I also got another question, by the way, Princess, and that is, again, we're talking about psychopaths. I'm not a clinical, psychologist, but why are there so many? And again, there's two kinds of empathy we need to figure out. One is empathy by calculation. This is the logical part, and that's just like a computer can do that. AI can do that pretty well today. It's just calculating your response. But the other one is empathy by compassion, the affective empathy. And that's deeply human. And that's what I promote most. We need both, but this is where I see the best leaders excel. They have empathy by compassion. Doesn't mean that they're not result-oriented, they're not pushovers, they're just better at it.
So true. It's like trying to bake a cake without sugar. You might get something sweet and edible, but again, it's not going to be sweet. Let's talk back about feedback again. So someone has asked, isn't it too cuddly to praise people when they're just doing their job? So what's your take on that? Do you think is it too touchy-feely to be positive?
If they're just doing mundane day-to-day things, nothing special, then I understand that you believe like that. But it's like the old couple, and the woman said to his man, "Do you still love me?" And the man said, "I told you 30 years ago, I will tell you if I change my mind." It's not good enough. So if you want a certain behavior and your person, the people actually do that the way they want it, the wanted behavior, it's not a bad idea to say, you know what, when you met that colleague or that client or whoever, and you did this and this and this, you got the positive outcome of it. I'm really proud of you. Thank you for doing that. Do you think that they will do more of that or less of that if you do that? They will do more of it. Let me give you a banal example. Let's say that we have a meeting, a physical meeting. I have a training session with you, 2-day training. And you come into the room and I have a loudspeaker on with some music. And if you say to me, "Hey, cool, feels good to come into a room with music," do you think that I will have music on for my next training? Probably so. If you say nothing, I will be confused. Didn't they like it? If you never praise your people just because they do their job, they don't get any feedback. And if they only get feedback when they do something wrong, they will understand that I need to just shield myself. This is a going away from mentality eventually. So it's not cuddly if you do it right, but if you feel that you can't do it every time, or don't do it every time, but do it when it matters at least, so you know that they can, feel that praise. Again, 6 times more positive recognition for high performing teams. That's just numbers. I didn't invent it. It comes from huge studies. Long answer, sorry.
No, fantastic. That's a great perspective. I mean, who doesn't like a little recognition now and then? So now this next question might hit close home for some, and it's something you've touched on quite earlier on. Occasionally, managers and coworkers have to deal with someone who's more about coffee breaks than actual work. What tips do you have for transforming these folks into enthusiastic and diligent team members?
I guess there's so many things that I can mention here, but I'm going to mention a couple of things. Do they understand why you're there? Do they understand the purpose of you existing, who you serve, how the world will be a better place with it? Do they understand that? Do they understand what goals they have to get there? What are their particular role? If you want to, you can have weekly goals with them. You set up a goal, or they set up a goal, depending on how much you can delegate. A week later, you said, how did it go? And then you go again. Set up a new goal, ask them, what is your goal for next week? How can I support you? A week after, if they say, yeah, you can help me with this and that, you help them. If they say, no, I'm fine. Next week, how did it go? What is your weekly goal? How can I support you? If you do that week after week or bi-weekly, whatever, they will understand that they need to do something as well. There's one more thing I want to mention with this one, because this is also pretty interesting. You should not disregard people who are not high performers by themselves, but make other people high performers. There are those who you don't notice it until they're gone. Then you realize that so many things just breaks apart. There's no one anymore that makes me smile or say good morning in the morning. There's no one who just makes sure that there is coffee whatever it is. So don't just push them away because they are not performing so well themselves. They can just be awesome of helping every other person perform. So be aware that some of them are just not slackers. They're just really good at serving other people. So that's the difference. You must realize, are they slackers or are they the oil that makes sure that the engine works? Two different ones.
Thank you, Antoni. Solid advice there. Speaking of tricky situations, we have another question coming from our viewer in Georgia, actually. How do you suggest we manage up to 9 scientist owners, VPs, and C-level managers without feeling like you're speaking a different language?
Well, the key there was speaking a different language. And this is, again, I work so much with your industry, and I do a lot of presentation skills training and other things like that. And the problem you have is that you are too smart and too knowledgeable. This is the problem. You know so much that you sometimes forget that people don't know as much. And I've had that situation with many people saying, you know what you're saying makes sense to just a fraction of people. But if you want to talk to a person who is not as knowledgeable as you must make sure that it's simple. So there's this 3-step process going on here. First, you're simple because you don't know better. You enter a new job, for instance. Then you are complicated because you do know better. That's where most people end up. But the best ones are simple again, but with substance. That's what you want to aim for. So and it takes much more work, by the way. It's much more easy to be complicated than to be simple. You don't have to work. You just have to use your jargon, your lingo, your 3-letter abbreviations that nobody gets except you and some other people. But make an effort and be clear. Clarity is one of the superpowers. If you're clear, you make people feel smart, they will like you much more.
That's a great point. I am aware of the time we have left, and we still have a lot of questions from the audience. So I'm afraid we must move on. And I wanted to talk about workplace conflict. So it's often described as the necessary evil of business. So with leaders claiming it's like the secret ingredients that help the organization grow. Do you think this spicy approach actually does the trick, or is it just like a recipe for chaos?
I actually don't believe in conflicts at all. And I know that so many people say conflicts are so good, it's so developing, and we grow with conflicts. No, we don't. Conflicts is what Putin is doing to Zelensky right now. That's a conflict. Look it up in the word dictionary. You will find that it's a battle. I win, you lose. Disagreements is good if you have a respectful, trustworthy environment. Conflicts are very bad. I know people talk about constructive conflicts just to try to mend it into something, the square peg in a round hole. Be aware of conflicts. It's really dangerous. You should separate a scratch from a wound. A scratch is a disagreement, a wound is a conflict. Two different things.
Thank you, Antoni. Now, as we're nearing the end of our session, I'd like to end with an uplifting note with this final question from Itzel. I hope I pronounced that right. Can you share another short success story that will inspire our current and aspiring leaders today and make us feel like, we're in a feel-good movie montage?
Well, first of all, you're in the right industry. Let me say that first. You are there to improve the quality of life for many people. I believe in you. You are the ones that will be the part of the solution and nothing else. And I'll tell you, some people, some managers come up to me afterwards and say, you know what, so many things hit home, but I just need to stop and listen a bit more. I need to stop the things that goes on in my head, take a break and just be present and listen more. And I've seen some amazing reactions when they do, because all of a sudden people again will feel much more appreciated when they do. And even customers. I remember one company in the real estate business, we did a lot of exercises with them and they called me up afterwards. Actually, they emailed me and said, you know what, our tenants like us now. And all we do is to listen just a bit more. And by the way, we like them more too. So spend a little bit more time with them. It's like in the US, for instance, when you have doctors who do malpractitions. Some of them get sued, some of them don't. And the difference between those two are 3 minutes. The doctors who spend 3 more minutes with the patients, even if they do malpractice, will not get sued. So care for your people. And when you do that, we're in a much better place.
Thank you so much, Antoni. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. However, if your question wasn't answered, don't worry, we'll be sure to send all unanswered questions to the speaker after the event. So remember, just like all the talks in this session will be available to view on demand for the next 30 days. So thank you once again, Antoni, for joining us today, and we'll be right back with the next talk.
My pleasure. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you are there.
Thank you.